Are you experiencing back pain that you can't get rid of? Getting migraines, vertigo, having trouble sleeping, and/or brain fog? Do you feel like your medical doctor doesn't understand your condition? Blair Chiropractic might be the solution you've been looking for. If you've ever been skeptical about this, the two doctors you're about to listen to were even more skeptical than you were when they looked into chiropractic work. But fear not. Get expert guidance from the blonde and the bald, Doctors Beth Bagley and Frederick Sugar. These two doctors have extensive experience beyond the healthcare realm and bringing unique vision and healing to their patients. What do you have when you get a biological analyst and an engineer together? Find out right here on another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Welcome your hosts, Doctors Bagley and Sugar.
Welcome, everyone, to The Blonde and the Bald. I'm Dr. Frederick Sugar.
And I'm Dr. Beth Bagley.
And we have another guest here. We have Kelli, who's one of my patients.
Hi, Kelli.
She has gone through so much stuff, and I don't even want to spoil it for you because she's got a crazy story. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get started and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you ended up starting to see me. How many? 5 or 6 years ago? 7 years ago?
16.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. So several years ago.
Okay. Well, like they said, I'm Kelli. I'm a patient of Dr. Sugar's. I was in a car accident in December of 2015. And at that time, I worked at a bank. I was a mortgage loan processor. And it was 2 days before Christmas. I got rear-ended. I was at a stoplight and the guy was texting and rear-ended me. So yeah, my car was totaled. When I got back to work, one of the girls that I worked with was actually a patient of Dr. Sugar's and was like, you need to go. Like, you need to go. I promise, like, it'll change your life. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I didn't really know what to do after a car accident. Like, I don't know, kind of changes your life. So you just kind of don't really know what to do. So I started to see Dr. Sugar, and I was constantly like in and out of like pain and brain fog, but I still was able to maintain working. I don't think I was ever the same after the car accident though. So I ended up like quitting that job and took some time to heal. But then I did end up going to school. I was going to school to be a pharmacy technician, and I got through that and was at the top of my class. And even so much so, I ended up going back to become the teacher of the class.
Oh my gosh, how incredible.
I taught that. So I was still able to stay pretty sharp, except when I was out of pain. And I did experience a lot of headaches then. Now that I'm thinking back, I had a lot of headache problems. Then fast forward October of 2020.
Well, even before this accident, she is planning not just she's top of her class as a farm tech. But it would be the same thing because you would have, in either case, you were planning on becoming a pharmacist. You were getting into that mode, and that's not an easy doctorate by any means.
No.
But yet you knew that chemistry better than some of the pharmacists, is the impression I got. So you were ready to go down that pathway, even if I was trying to convince you to go off to chiropractic school.
I believe it.
But anyways, but you're working as a farm tech around town, and then October 20.
And I was going to school to become a pharmacist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you were doing all this stuff.
And then October 2020, I was driving to appointment because I also get like Botox injections in my head for the headaches. And a guy high on meth ran the red light and just T-boned me.
No.
Really, really bad. So I just remember calling Dr. Sugar and saying, like, guess what? You'll never guess what happened. And he's like, okay, what? And I was like, I was just in another car accident, like another one. I couldn't believe it. And this one really sat me down. I was in bed for months. I didn't walk very well. I couldn't talk very well. I couldn't remember words, phrases, names of things. And even now when I'm out of place, that still is really hard. It's like I have multiple personalities or something.
Yeah.
I'm completely different when I'm out of place and not adjusted. I don't remember things. I can't remember the name of like a water bottle or a door handle or just normal functioning things, let alone just being able to get dressed for the day or just being able to feel good enough to even shower. Like those things became like so difficult. And that was in 2020. So even now I still struggle when I'm out of place.
Wow. Dr. Sugar, you could probably answer this too. Would we consider that at this point like a traumatic brain injury?
It would
Getting
definitely
hit like
be.
that.
Yeah, it would definitely fall into, well, there's certainly a concussion aspect to all of this. And we don't understand concussions, period. I mean, like hands down, the medical profession has a really weak understanding on it. We're trying to understand it better. But cases like Kelli, after we thought 2 bad car accidents, there's an extra part to this story here in a moment. But after multiple car accidents, we start seeing, that the brain does not bounce back. In fact, the brain's not supposed to bounce in the first place. So this ends up being the bigger issue.
That's a pretty good tagline.
It is. It is. So, and in fact, after we finished up our podcast last week, I listened to another webinar for almost 2 hours, just talking about concussions. And the doctor was at the end of the hour, the doctor basically said, "I'm sorry that this is so much information, but there's just so much information." And I cut off at 8:30 our time, and he was still going, and I haven't gone back to listen to the last half hour. No surprise, he's got this long presentation that he's doing at a webinar or an online seminar here in a couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to be on that one too. So, any case,
Nice.
but there's a lot of things that are going on with a concussion case, and the more times you've had a concussion, this is why we start, we do get into mild traumatic brain injury or traumatic brain injury. This gets back into the boxers and how much, that they've got.
How many times did you get hit?
Yeah, exactly.
One more question. In this second car accident, did your head physically hit anything? Like, did you hit the side of the door or that you remember? I know it's hard.
Yeah, the airbags came like on
Okay.
side and front. So I know I had to have,
So it was a deceleration. So like you went from, the movement, it stopped you maybe from dying, which is amazing.
Yeah, it did.
But it's still really hard on your brain. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. What's next in this saga?
So let's back up. Let's talk about where we've been for the past couple of years.
Okay.
Kelli's had days where she's clear, her atlas is clear, and she's like sharp as a tack, and it's just like, yes, we're on. And then, like she said, she's got days where it's just not.
Yeah.
Well, what we're figuring out now is when her C2 is out of place, well, she just wants to sleep all the time.
Yeah.
So
that just happened. Actually, I was like bedridden for almost a week. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't even, it was so much fatigue to the point of just like opening my eyes and just, okay, what time is it? Okay. And I couldn't even fight through it.
Wow.
So it's weird because I almost feel like when I get adjusted and people see me, I almost feel like they think I'm faking it because I can be so in pain and limping and can't remember and so sleepy and foggy brained, and then I'm adjusted and I'm just like, wow, I'm feeling better and I can talk and think and move better. And it's definitely a trip.
And we were just joking about this earlier that she was like, we got her a C2 adjusted this evening, and all of a sudden she laughs about it. And we started talking about how, I'm not angry anymore. Which we joke about C3 being the mood bone, but for her it's C2.
It's C2 for you.
She was sharing how she's been a little bit more aggressive. Well, I think you're just being a mom who's upset that the children aren't doing their stuff.
No.
When the C2 is out of place, I call it the Incredible Hulk. It makes me
absolutely. You are not wrong. If I am not in alignment, at some point my family will be like, I think you need to go get checked because they can tell.
But the funny thing was, is as you were telling us, your son was supposed to do something and you asked him on Monday.
Mm-hmm. And then I asked him again on Tuesday and multiple times, 4 times. And then I, told him on Wednesday, and then I demanded him to do it on, Thursday. And by Friday, I'm Incredible Hulk. It's over.
Well, and what's interesting is she'll remember the big or she'll forget the big important stuff. Like that stuff just won't click for her.
Yeah.
But the little things,
mm-hmm.
My wife's the same way. When she's like, you didn't do this. I'm like, no, but I'll get to it. It's and yet the big things.
Yeah.
It's weird how what parts of the brain will actively work. And sometimes it's like the little things that will needle us when we're out of adjustment, that it's just like, I can't handle that little thing.
Yeah.
Big things, the world might be falling apart around us, not an issue, but those little things, I'm the same way. The little, it's like, no, really, I just don't want that touching me. Just don't.
Yeah.
No, there is an aspect of, I think, it's like how much stress we can take, and it's so much decreased when we're out of alignment, and that goes for anyone. But some of us are more sensitive to others, and I think a lot of chiropractors, why we are chiropractors is because we feel we get it. Like, we go through this stuff ourselves, and maybe not everyone is as crazy as all of us, but there's going to be somebody listening to this at some point, and they're like, yeah, I get mad really easily. And it might be your neck. We might need to check your neck.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. Sometimes, and you've talked about this in the past, we've only got so much so much of a dam that we can hold back of water.
Yep.
And chiropractic helps build it up higher. But sometimes, you've got big old chunks missing because you don't know what kind of stresses you've had in your life.
Yeah.
And you just found out this week from your mom.
We've been having phone conversations because she's trying to help me remember things.
Yeah.
From the second car accident, there's a lot from my past, like childhood memories and, vacations and friends and things that I just don't remember. And she was like, well, do you remember you were in a car accident when you were moving from, St. George to Salt Lake? And I was like, oh, yeah, I was.
So there's another one.
Yeah.
There's the third one. Yep. And
it was before. It was really the first one.
2007. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and now that she brought that up, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember it. But she said I didn't go to the ER. But later that evening, she said you were so out of it that we took you. And I still don't remember that. She tried to explain.
Wow.
I just really didn't. I was walking weird. I didn't really know what I was doing and where I was. And I don't remember that at all. I still can't. But what's weird is like I still seem to do okay. I was young. I was like 19, I think, at the time, or 20.
Yeah.
So I saw a chiropractor in Salt Lake, but it was not an upper cervical chiropractor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of, and then it just ended there. I was just kind of like, I guess this is it. Like, I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
But I just completely forgot about that chunk of my life.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, that's unfortunately the way these car accidents and these other injuries that we have, we forget about them, and we're like, well, I'm not sure why I've got all this problem. And sometimes, and I hope that we can figure out better ways to sort of address these things to get you out of the stuff long term. But the good news is, short term, we can certainly make sure your head's on straight and that your body is working the way it's supposed to. And then you can take care of the kids and everything else that's going on in your life. So.
Yeah.
And you've got a pretty easy warning, like you can tell when you're out of alignment. So now tiredness can be the thing, pain, obviously, mental fog, that kind of stuff. So like, okay, something's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Where some people, it's not always that drastic. So some of them don't know that they're out of alignment, and that can be bad too, because then they end up degenerating and things, and they don't get the help they need. So in a way, I know it sounds awful, but your symptoms are actually very helpful. So you can get the care you need when you need it.
Yeah. And I feel like people even can get misdiagnosed, because like my neurologist, when I tell him like I'm forgetting words and this and that, I just like, your brain's fine. We did a CT scan, your brain's fine.
Yeah, you don't have a tumor in there, so it's fine.
And so they're just like, well, I don't understand why you're having memory problems, and so they just kind of write it off as post-concussion symptoms. Headaches, unknown, it says unspecified headaches, and they just, try to do injections and medication. And I think, a lot of those symptoms, even after my car accident, my neurologist was like, he said I needed like mental health because so you're going on this roller coaster. But I think that can also happen because if you get so irritable from being out of place and you might just be snappy, people might just be like, oh, you're bipolar, or you're being crazy, you're PMSing, or you're just, like it gets totally just thrown off and pushed off as just like something else. And either people don't do anything about it or they just medicate. And then when really like, I just know I need to get adjusted.
Absolutely.
Back to my personality. Like my personality changes when I'm not in adjustment. I'm a whole different person. It's weird.
So it's a really good point. And the fact that a lot of times that we hear this a lot is that people come to us as sometimes the last resort because they've tried all of the medical things, and their last thing is they were told to go to a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist to get medicated. And because the doctors don't believe them anymore. And so they come and see us and we're like, oh, we believe you. Yeah, there's something going on. I'm not saying mental illness doesn't exist. It absolutely exists.
It does.
But there are times where the doctors don't have any answers for these things. And like one of the things, like you were saying, post-concussion is just a diagnosis of post-concussion. I'm like, but what are we going to do about it?
Right.
And that's where upper cervical doctors, Blair doctors, we have answers for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was prescribed propranolol for concussion symptoms.
Wow.
But I don't take it. I was like, it didn't really do anything. So, it doesn't do anything for me. So.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to add?
No, I think
What would you say to someone out there who has had multiple accidents or or is having like post-concussion syndrome or symptoms like that? What would you say to them to like help support them and just say what's on your heart?
I would say to somebody like that, for one, I'm sorry that you have to go through those things because I totally understand. I would tell them that like you're not alone, because there's so many people that are dealing with these kinds of things, from being in an accident and dealing with doctors and not knowing and not getting like solid concrete answers. I think it's so frustrating to not get those answers, and it almost does make you start feeling crazy, and then you get that like why am I just going through life like this? And so I guess I would say like I understand, but there are other options. Like upper cervical chiropractic is life-changing. I always joke with Dr. Sugar, like if I ever go on vacation, like I have to take you guys with me. I can't this is not like, I need you guys. So it's life-changing. And you really, if you're struggling with that, then you haven't tried it all. If you haven't tried upper cervical, then you haven't still tried it all. So keep searching, there's hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel, which is very hard because there was a time I was like, another accident, there's no hope for me, but I still have been able to pull through it. And this is really the only thing that I stick to that helps me. So
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. That's so nice to you. And you are going to help others by speaking up and talking about this.
Well, good. Thank you. I'm glad I could. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. So thank you so much. Kelli's, like I said, she's one of my favorite patients.
She's so sweet.
She's been through a lot. clearly,
Yes,
but she does great. And if we can keep her in alignment, she does great. When she does travel, I'm like, all right, where are you headed to? Here's the doctors you need to go see. Because these cases, like my wife and I are planning a trip down to Little Rock to get some work done for her that has been helping her out. As much as she's got a tricky listing. She's hard to adjust. And while we're down there, we're going to go see Dr. Craig York, who's a good friend and colleague who does a slightly different adjustment style through orthospinology, with a different instrument that most of those docs don't even have.
Wow.
And that seems to be helping her out a little bit, but it's Little Rock, Arkansas, and that's a 7-hour drive. And
That's a long drive.
it is. Now we may get lucky, and we were talking about going to find there's a place about 2 hours south that we could go. What do they call it? Basically, when you're searching for gold in the river.
Gold, panning for gold.
Yes, panning for gold.
That's
any
fun.
case. We could do that.
I watch I'm obsessed with this YouTube channel called Dan Hurd Prospecting.
Yeah.
HURD. And he's a prospector in Canada.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, he's so fun to watch. So he's got a good YouTube channel.
Well, good. And that's funny because I was just hearing a story about a Canadian national park where there's apparently a lot of gold, except it's an old Indian area that was only one really Indian group that was up there. And everyone who's, many of the people who have been up there doing gold prospecting, when they find their bodies, they're missing their heads. Yeah. So they call it the headless forest. And I'm just like,
ew, gosh, how horrible.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I think I'm going to pass. I think I'm going to pass on, at least in Canada.
Since we're going on this tangent, I'm going to talk about something else I read today. It has nothing to do with chiropractic.
Right.
But I've always really wanted to go morel mushroom hunting. And this is the season right now for morel mushrooms. Obviously, this is coming out later, so don't get upset because it's not right when you guys are listening to it. But in Missouri, 2 weeks in a row, people are morel mushroom hunting and they're finding dead bodies.
Oh my goodness.
Like murdered people in the
murdered
woods.
People. Oh my goodness.
One was in Northeast Missouri, and then there was one out in Peevely. It's their first murder since 1990.
Oh my goodness. Well, folks, just be careful when you're morel mushroom hunting.
Well, I don't think they were morel mushroom hunting when they got murdered. The hunters are the ones who found the murder.
Oh, okay. People. Okay. All right. So they found murder people. It wasn't the mushroom hunters. Got it.
But I'm afraid to go now.
You've got woods right behind your house.
I do. There could be dead bodies back there.
There could be dead bodies, but there's probably more likely mushrooms back there.
There's definitely coyotes back there.
There are. But in any case, let's talk about concussions for a little bit because that can unfortunately.
Okay, I'm going to do my tidbit of information. I love putting this one out there. So a concussion is when pretty much we're going to call your brain rattles in your head, but it slams against the sides of the head. There can be it's almost like a bruised brain, right? Your brain is injured. It takes about 20 G's of force. So G's is against gravity to cause a concussion. So you really have to slam your head against something pretty hard. It only takes 4 G's of force to injure your neck. So almost, I would say everyone who has had a concussion or has recovered from a concussion probably also has neck trauma. And for us, why we are so passionate about this post-concussion syndrome is what is missing is they've treated the brain, and now they're going to medicate the brain. But no one's looking at the neck. And that's what we do is we look at the neck and we figure out if the trauma that translated down into our little stick necks with our giant melon heads has caused a misalignment. And if it's caused that misalignment, guess who the doctors are that fix that? That's upper cervical chiropractors,
Absolutely.
Blair chiropractors. There's lots of other upper cervical techniques, but obviously we like what we do the best, but I wouldn't if there's somebody listening and there's no Blair chiropractor in your area, find upper cervical in general, or again, contact our offices and we will help find you someone.
Yeah, because we don't want you suffering from this. And a great example, I had a new patient come in today who was in a car accident about 5 years ago, went to his local chiropractor, who's a great chiropractor in his area. Fine, no problems, didn't have any issues up until, we've had an early spring around here for a better part of a month. He was out playing soccer, didn't realize how out of shape he was after the winter. And he didn't have any sort of major injuries. It's not like somebody was going for the ball and knocked him over or vice versa. He ended up just slipping on the grass because, yes, it's been early spring, but it's still been really damp. So he slipped and fell a couple times and felt really bruised up from the running around playing soccer the next day, but nothing out of the ordinary until as he's sitting at his desk and he just starts getting this neck pain and this, constant headache on the right side of his head, along with tingling down the right side of his hand. So he ends up, coming in because his sister has had great results. And sure enough, we got him cleared up today. But, again, he might have never gotten the upper cervical completely cleared up with the traditional chiropractic, not because they didn't do a good job, but because it's really hard to address that. And you need something that is quite simply more advanced, more precise than what traditional chiropractic addresses. And then the next step is if you've got a severe enough concussion that you're having other problems like Kelli was, you need to start taking things, you need to start doing some lifestyle changes that are going to get you better, because the medications in and of themselves may take some of the edge off the symptoms, but it's not going to allow the healing to work. And so, as I mentioned, right after our last podcast, I went on a webinar for another hour and a half. Dr. Musnick, I think is the name. I might be mispronouncing that, but he's based out of Boise, Idaho, was doing the presentation talking about how you need to get a good crew of people around you. And he's talking more as a medical doctor about, finding the right people. And to your point about 20G to cause a concussion, but only 4G to cause a neck problem, his comment was, find those upper cervical doctors around your area. And he made it a point to say, I know all the upper cervical doctors in the Boise area. Well, guess who else knows all the Boise doctors or the upper cervical doctors in the Boise area? So I quickly do a text over to my buddy, what's his name? Grayson Bloom, who's over there. And I'm like, hey, what do you know of this doc? And more importantly, where can I find one of him in our area so that I can start referring some of these cases that are just
we all
not
want to
getting
co-manage. That's the thing is we play well with others. We really do.
And finding a medical doctor who understands concussion and can start saying, hey, these are the things to do. And he threw some high level stuff out there. I know he mentioned ketogenic diet. We've talked about that in the past being really good for helping clear out the brain. Getting rid of calcium supplements, interestingly enough, calcium apparently is a problem. The other one was these electronic devices. EMF in general can be a major driver. I have several cases who are probably more EMF sensitive than they care to admit. One case, when she and her husband and daughter were kayaking on the one lake by their house, their major power lines way up high, but they're major power lines that they have to go underneath. Well, dad and daughter are going across the lake without a problem, but mom all of a sudden freezes up. She cannot move. She is directly under the power lines. They look up, they see her, they're like, uh-oh. So they go over, get on either side of her, paddle, grab her kayak and paddle her out, and then she's able to start functioning. And interestingly enough, she has weird calcium buildups on the inside of her body, which they discovered after she had her breast implants removed.
Wow.
Because she had heard all the stuff that Danica Patrick was going through with her breast implants and how toxic they were to Danica's body. So she says, I'm going to get rid of mine as well. And sure enough, the surgeon was very surprised by that calcium buildup. So again, here's that calcium causing a problem. And who knows what other traumas may have been playing in that role. So lots of weird things that can play into those concussions.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
Kind of voodoo stuff, but so I've seen these for years, but they're these little stickers that you can put on your phone that reduce EM stuff. Do you think they work?
I don't know. I have one on my phone. I got this one. This
I
one
want
was
to buy one.
well, it was. I think I got a bunch of these from. Well, it's Bond Charge now. I can't remember what they were beforehand. If they want to be a sponsor for the channel and send us a bunch of red light stuff, that would be great.
That sounds fun.
Right?
No, I was watching JP Sears and he had them as a sponsor.
Yeah.
I think it was them.
No, that's them. That's them. Okay. And that's sort of why I broke down and bought them, because I'm like, all right, I'll try it, because I carry this on me all day long. In fact, the same patient that was having problems with the EMF going underneath the power lines, every time I do a Titron on her, when we squeeze the trigger on the Titron to activate it, it does not have electricity running to it until that point in time. Mine happens to be wireless. Not that she didn't have a problem with the other one, but anytime I pulled the trigger, and I've set it on her neck, and her husband has just watched from the side, and then I pull the trigger, and then she just all of a sudden freaks out because that energy is enough without me moving. Just me pulling that trigger, she sets off. So I bought them figuring, all right, let's put this on the Titron to see if that sort of takes care of it. For her, it did not. I did not see a change there. But again, how sensitive is she to just the slightest little bit? So I think they are, for the cost of them, if they do something beneficial, great.
Yeah.
So let's take another rabbit hole along that line. There's a brand of underwear called Lambs. Lambs are silver lined underwear to protect your private parts, or you can get a hat.
I've seen the hats. I didn't know they had underwear.
Yeah. Dr. Tom swears by it. I broke down several years ago and bought the underwear.
Silver is also antimicrobial.
Antimicrobial, but it's also protective. The weave they've got on these is protective against EMF. I stopped buying from the company, and if Lambs wants to sponsor us, they're more than welcome to sponsor us.
Send me some undies.
I know, right? But I stopped buying from them because I couldn't. I was waiting months to get a new pair. To get a new 3-pack. And the first three, I did wash them. But they wear, this is the problem with underwear. It does break down. And so I'm like, does this stuff even work?
Yeah. Right.
And then I go to the airport to fly to one of our conventions. I'm certain couldn't tell you which one it was. And I don't even think of it. I wear this stuff all the time because they're comfy. And a lot of people object and they say, hey, I'd rather just do the pat down. I'd rather just, not do
I used to, but then I feel like I've been sexually assaulted.
Right. Well, there's a little bit of that.
There's a lot of it of that.
And I'm at the point where my EMF exposure and my understanding of what it is, I'm not too worried about it. Now, is this because of a concussion? Maybe, certainly after that car accident. But again, I'm less concerned about it because I know it's everywhere, and the quick exposure gets me on my way to my next spot. I don't find it to be as intrusive as some things that I find intrusive. Anyways, so I'm up, hands up, go ahead. It's going to spin around you, and hey, you're coming up like a lot of stuff around your groin area. And I'm oh yeah, it's the underwear. And I look at the scanner, and right there, across the, from the waistband down to right underneath the groin, it is all coming up like it's blacked out.
Like it's like something.
Like it's reflecting something. And I'm like,
okay, it works. Magic underwear, they work. Yay.
They work. So the question is how can we measure that? I would be, I'd love, this begs the question, and there are units you can buy on Amazon to measure the EMF
the
around
EMF
your house.
readers.
Yes, exactly. So if you want to see if you've got a problem there, that would be something to invest in, especially if you think you might be, EMF might be giving you trouble.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems with a lot of EMF lately, certainly in the past decade, is all of your electrical meters have been switched to an EMF, to an RF frequency, so that they don't have to come back and read. It just automatically transmits across Wi-Fi, and bam, all set. And what do all of us have in our houses? Lots of Wi-Fi. So, and not only our Wi-Fi, but the neighbor's Wi-Fi on both sides. And
you can see all of the neighborhoods Wi-Fi in your house.
So this begs questions of how much, EMF exposure is causing people still more problems. So again, all sorts of, lots of questions, not a lot of answers.
I'm going to just live inside a Faraday cage.
I thought really hard about, because after we had that little bit of mold exposure in our bedroom, I thought, all right, if I'm tearing this down, I'm putting a bunch of copper along the walls to sort of insulate everything, bring a hardwire Cat 5, Cat 6 into the room so that the missus can be on the computer if she needs to. But
and then you can turn your Wi-Fi off at night.
And then we can turn the Wi-Fi off at night. She doesn't like that idea. I think
we actually considered, we haven't done it, but we really have considered turning the Wi-Fi off at night. I don't know why we don't. But other than it's just a thing to think about. If
you got your neighbors on either side of you to turn off theirs as well.
I know, but we don't. I mean, I get pretty much a full signal of I should just cancel mine and ask them for their password. It's so much in my house.
Exactly. And that's sort of, this becomes the problem, is at what point in time do you have so much exposure that you can't get away from it?
I'm going to go live in the woods.
You don't have to go very far.
That's true.
Don't be the dead body.
I of course I watch all this stupid TV stuff. That there's a place, I don't know where it is. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. You all can. That there's no Wi-Fi, no electrical devices like that allowed, because they have a like a how-powered telescope or something, right? Yeah. Like it's in America. So everyone who has these super EM sensitive people will go live there, because they're not going to get inundated with these electromagnetic Wi-Fi signals. Cell phones aren't allowed. All the things aren't allowed. Well, I mean, you could bring a cell phone, but there's no service there.
Right.
And so then there's like cops that go around with detectors, trying to find people who have
they're trying
Wi-Fi.
to break. Yeah.
Because you're supposed to only have
wired
everything wired plugged in. You can have the internet, but it needs to be plugged in.
Yeah.
And so they go and then they give people tickets for having Wi-Fi
but it is not the craziest thing. And especially, if you are having and this has been a question of mine as far as, my hair loss. My hair fell out shortly after getting I think my first Apple phone, which was a 3. Now I'd had my old one, my old BlackBerry, used as an alarm clock forever as well. So it's not like it changed a whole lot, but it's just little things and questions, and the electrical engineer in me doesn't have this stuff as well.
Well, these though are going to be a lot less. So we both have wired headphones in, and on purpose. I don't own a pair of AirPods. I think they're neat, and I think that I wish I would let myself own some, because it would make my life a lot easier. But I don't let my kids have them. My husband doesn't want them, and I don't have them, not because we're cheap, but we are, but not because we're cheap, but because that's another aspect of radiation that's right next to your skull. I mean, people are walking around all day long with them. Yeah. And okay, maybe it's totally fine. But what if it's not, and we don't find out for 15 years, and then there's this like a whole bunch of like auditory cancers or brain cancers.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I have, so I'm really bad about using my left ear for my earbuds, but I also I've got a small little Bluetooth. I bought a $10 Bluetooth unit. I know. And that goes into this ear too. And that's where, that's the one I talk on. Am I wearing it all day long? Absolutely not. Some of these people that are wearing it all day
But some
long,
people wear them all day, all day.
And I think that's the bigger concern. But do I wear mine a lot? Yeah. Do I wear it when I'm out and about doing things? So again, it's a question of
choices, and
it is choices.
Amount of time, right? Like if you eat McDonald's once a year, you're not going to get sick. I'll get sick.
Well,
for
you
that
might
day,
get,
but
you might get sick for
that
the
day. But if you eat McDonald's every day, you're going to have diabetes, heart disease, stroke increases, all of the things. So
it can be
it's the amount.
Be a problem. Yeah, it can be a problem.
And that's the same thing with the technology.
Right. And I think it comes down to tolerance levels. Can we find examples of people who've eaten, like there was in the Super Size Me movie, there was the guy who ate Big Macs all the time, and he would buy extra Big Macs and freeze them so that he, when they went on sale, so that he would have Big Macs, at home. He was probably an outlier, and he looked skinny. Not skinny fat. No, he wasn't skinny fat. He was thin, almost rail thin. But I think his metabolism allows for whatever that is. So you have outliers. Do you have outliers of people who smoke cigarettes and drink whiskey all day long
and lived to 95 years old?
Exactly. So you have outliers. So we can't say, oh, but look at these outliers. I was like, those are outliers. You're always going to have outliers. You're also going to have people who smoked one cigarette and drank a half of whiskey and died immediately. That's another outlier on the other side.
And that's just to break down what an outlier is, just for someone who doesn't read science stuff, is if we think of something like a bell curve. So you've got a curve and you've got this bell curve. The middle section is where the averages live. Like that's where like most people would live in whatever we're talking about. The outliers are the people that are outside of that curve or outside of that
it's the
area.
99%, and it's the people in the 99 percentile and the 1 percentile.
On
those
either
people,
side.
You don't worry about that stuff. That is not, science happens in the center of those bell curves, because that's where the vast majority of the population lives. And this is, if we focus on the center of the bell curve, we can, help a maximum amount of people. Now, that varies from person to person. Now, do we have, sort of like with chiropractic, do we have people who don't respond to upper cervical? Yes. There's a small percentage of them, but they exist. And,
they do.
And quite honestly, normally I send them to another technique other than what we do to see if they can get help. But it just varies, along that spectrum. But in that center of the bell curve is where most things exist. And there's some people that have no problems in that bell curve. And, again, you've got your outliers. But, that center of that bell curve is where the vast majority of us live.
Yeah. And it's actually a really good point. I had someone ask me today, as a patient getting her test results. So she's just got her first adjustment today. And she goes like, what are the chances that this can get better? What, and I don't have numbers on that.
Oh, sure.
But I said, I should use the bell curve example, honestly, because that's what makes the most sense, is that, I said the vast majority of people that come in here get results. Maybe they don't get every single thing better in their entire life, but they're going to see changes in symptoms. And
that usually lists and you have very small people at the top of the population that get immediate results. Less than 10%. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And then the next probably 80% of people will see changes within about 2 weeks. And then that last group, it might take a month or two. Because depending upon how chronic they are. Kelly's a great example. Kelly was in that couple week response time after her first accident. After her second accident, that response time, we knew we were going the right direction because we knew, how she responded, but it took longer. And it's still, a process, 3 years later, getting her to be able to function normally.
It makes sense that there's three
traumas.
Injuries to the head and neck. So That's a big deal. And the first one, she didn't even remember.
Exactly. And she still doesn't remember, which is,
Yeah, she just she remembers people telling her about it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's that's part of that mild traumatic brain injury type stuff going on. So it's scary stuff, because when you start asking yourself the question, who are you?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't take the time to sort of process that. But if you start saying, are you your hand? No. Am I the bow tie? I might be. But really, what ends up being between the ears and behind the eyes, I mean, that's who we are. And when we can't process what that is, then we've got trouble. And that's a scary thought to have when we don't know who we are.
Well, on that sad note, I feel like we were going to wrap it up.
We should at least come up with something a little bit better. But no, I think it's coming upon our hour of working on this, and we both need to go get dinner. So, folks, if you like what you're hearing, please share the podcast. We are seeing. I like the numbers we're seeing overall, but we would sure love to have you share this with more people. Like and subscribe. Turn on the notification bells if you're on YouTube, and definitely make sure you're subscribed on all your podcasting apps. Give us a 5-star review, because the 5-star review helps more than anything else. I'm sorry we cannot be Kyle and Steve from Hollow Sky. If you understand that reference, you are as much of a geek as I am.
I am not.
But and we are certainly not drinking. We're looking for sponsors like, Lambs or what was the other
underwear?
one?
I want underwear.
You want underwear? You want
silver
the Lambs.
underwear?
You want silver underwear? I would like what's Vivo Barefoot or these things.
Oh, gosh, you would love that one.
I would. In fact, I really love my new pair of shoes. I'm actually wearing them. Amazing.
Nobody wants to see your feet. Don't show it to us.
Nobody wants to see my feet. But any case, but no, make sure you're sharing and doing the 5-star reviews, because that really does help people find us. And make sure you share it on all the socials so that people can find it. Speaking of people can find it, Dr. Bagley, where can they find you?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I am at Precision Chiropractic, STL.com.
And I am in Springfield, Illinois at Keystone Chiro, SPI.com. And again, on all the socials, we do have, I think we both have several YouTube channels, but just go find The Blonde and the Bald on YouTube, and make sure you watch and subscribe, and do thumbs up on those, as well as that 5-star review, and share these last couple with our patient testimonials with your friends and family, because you never know who is suffering and how they are.
So true.
They're just not functioning the way they wish they could, and they don't even know that we're here to help them. So,
okay.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
With that, we'll wrap up. You all have a wonderful evening, and we will be back for another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Bye-bye.
That's all for today's episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's show with Drs. Bagley and Sugar, remember, don't give up and just live with the pain. Come back next week and get more answers and solutions. Visit our websites at KeystoneChiroSPI.com and PrecisionChiropracticSTL.com for more info, and catch all the episodes of The Blonde and the Bald.